What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of the Pullin Up From 40 podcast. I'm your co-host, Colin, here with my boy, Lucas. And we're really excited here for episode 2. It's been great feedback so far off of our first episode. So for all of you who are tuning in to our second episode here, we really appreciate it. And all of the feedback and comments, all the engagement on all the different social media platforms has been, really encouraging. I think I speak for the both of us in that we are just really excited just to continue to see this grow and, continuing to develop more, quality content for you all. So, anything from you, Lou?
If you've made it this far to episode 2, thank you. And one of the things that we need from you all is to hop on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you're watching us and either hit that like button, give us a 5-star rating. That helps us tremendously. So make sure you do that either during this podcast or after you're done with it.
100%. So with that being said, let's just jump right into it, man. So I think first and foremost, it's been an interesting week because it was NBA Media Day, I think last Tuesday. So a lot of interesting clips, a lot of interesting kind of talk tracks from superstars, coaches. What were some of your favorite moments?
I mean, I just think every time of year when media day comes around, it's when the teams are at their most optimistic, right? So to see one of the best teams in the league fail media day was very disappointing.
Dude, and if you can't read between the lines, or Lucas is talking about the Suns, DeAndre Ayton with easily the biggest clip, frankly, from the week of just not wanting to be there. I mean, right. His people literally asking him, when's the last time you've talked to Monty Williams? They haven't talked since Game 7 of, what was that? April, May. So they ended up, hitting him with the offer sheet, and he's back in Phoenix, obviously, but he wanted to go to Indiana,
which is crazy.
I
don't know who wants to be a Pacer, but
what does that say about his relationship with? I don't know where the blame lies, right? I feel like a lot of people are quick to throw it at Monty or Chris Paul, but I don't understand what his gripe is. It's like you're on a top 5 team in the West.
So one of the things that I know that he's upset about is he feels that he can do a lot more for a team offensively than he does right now. For the Suns, he's a ball screen roller, he's a rim runner, offensive rebounder, post-up player. I remember watching him in high school. The biggest knock on him was a lot of people felt that he didn't play to his strengths a lot of times because in high school he was actually trying to shoot a lot of threes.
I do remember that.
And you don't see him doing any of that with the Suns. And so I get, it's really hard for me to sympathize with somebody that just made $100 million this summer. But if I'm trying to see both sides, that would be one of the main reasons I believe he wanted to go somewhere where he could have an expanded offensive role and be more of a focal point of the offense.
Do you think he's even really capable of that?
I do. I think he's capable of that. But for it to happen, you have to go somewhere where basically you're on a team like Indiana. Indiana's going to let you do whatever you want because they're just happy that they got. I can't remember the last. Who was the last big free agent to go to Indiana like that? They don't like small market teams like that don't usually get players of a DeAndre Ayton's caliber. And the other thing I was thinking about is I would be salty if I wanted to go somewhere and then basically I didn't have the right to, because restricted free agency, you're the team that has your rights basically can say whether they want to take you back or not. Yeah. So I could understand why if you had signed somewhere else and then the team that you were trying to leave re-signs you, you'd probably be a little salty. But for that to come out in NBA Media Day is a whole different thing.
Exactly.
It's just amazing to me that even a team as good as the Suns already looking broken on. Even the Nets had a great NBA Media Day. People were feeling really optimistic about the Nets after Media Day, and they just had one of the worst PR summers that you could have had. So, I think I mean, I don't want to base anything off of media day, right? It's a very minor day, but it's not a good sign for them.
Yeah, the Suns lost media day without a doubt. I mean, it's just to your point, like the whole restricted free agent concept is insane, right? And on the outside looking in, you could definitely be like, well, for Phoenix, like, why don't you just let it go? I mean, DeAndre obviously just doesn't want to be there, but there's only a handful of guys in the NBA who do what he does, right? So like,
but who was going to be their starting center?
Well, that's the problem. Is like you have to. Yeah,
they had to do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. I don't know if I fully agree with you on DeAndre being capable of like being that guy and expanding his offensive role, just because like I feel like if he really had that capability, Phoenix would have tapped into it to a certain degree. I get it. You have to play it a little bit safer because you're a competitor. You have other stars to feed, for lack of better words. So I understand that perspective. But like, if he was really that guy, they would find a way for him to be that guy in Phoenix.
I mean, he showed moments in the early rounds of the playoffs of being a dominant big man. So I think, but I really do think that they just got to throw him a bone every once in a while. Let him maybe take 1-3 a game or something like that, because
That's
otherwise
fair.
you're going to have a disgruntled center, and that's the last person on your team you want to be disgruntled. That's supposed to be like the anchor of your team.
Exactly.
And
especially
so
on the defensive end.
it is concerning for them, but it's media day. I'm not going to
Yeah, you can't overhype it.
overhype it.
I feel like it's also just like we're all thirsty as hell for basketball season, you know what I mean? So people were just like very, very tapped into media day for that exact reason. So
I don't ever remember being this tapped into media day.
Bro, just like the general, like the NBA is just in a great place, man. Like they just like, I feel like just general fandom around it is just like so hype right now, and just like people are itching for it constantly, and that's kind of, I feel like people talk about it in general of like, the NBA just does a great job of like keeping you tapped into the life around the NBA year round.
For sure.
And I feel like it's just gotten just like more and more heightened.
But maybe one of the reasons why NBA Media Day we're noticing it so much is because they're trying to cover up for Robert Sarver, Ime Udoka stuff going on. You know what I mean? Because like I don't ever remember even thinking about NBA Media Day. Maybe it's because we're doing this podcast. I don't know. Like I literally don't ever remember like noticing it much or
caring.
And so maybe they were just like to all the NBA teams like, hey, your social media needs to be on point.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because we're trying to push all of this other stuff off to the side, which,
Yeah.
I get. What was there anything else from Media Day that stood out to you?
I think the biggest one for me was maybe not biggest one, but an important one I think was Christian Wood being basically notified while on the podium that Jason Kidd was intending to put him as the sixth man.
Right.
And I was reading some stuff about the situation and like why basically Wood's internal camp is pissed off about it. It's because he's in a contract year. So if he's only getting sixth man minutes and stats essentially, right, like that's how he's going to be evaluated at the time where he's going to be going out for, he's going to be looking for the max next summer, I think, or close to it. I mean, I think very highly of Christian Wood personally, and I think that he's in a great situation in Dallas, but I could definitely see him, playing in a more limited, non-starting role, hurting his overall value in terms of what his earning potential might be able to be. So I understand it from his perspective, but it was definitely not a good look for Jason Kidd specifically to be dropping that and Christian Wood finding out about it on the podium. Yeah,
I also just wonder, like, was Christian Wood just playing games? Like, I don't know if he really didn't know that, because I just don't know how that's possible. But at the same time, I will say this: when I was working in college basketball, Media Day was always like a little bit of a controversial time for the team. For example, when we're in the Big East and I'm at DePaul, you have 3 players that you can send to New York City for Media Day. So that kind of sends a message to the team already.
Yeah.
So it puts the coaches in an awkward position. And then I remember there was this one time where we had some sort of marketing campaign, and we had 8 players that we could pick for the campaign. So if you're like the 9th, you can understand how that would cause some animosity. So these things can happen on Media Day. I'm surprised to see it happen at the NBA level, but I mean, at the same time, and we'll get to Christian Wood a little more on this podcast, but I guess maybe I'm just not buying it because I just feel like at the professional level, there's usually not that type of miscommunication. But then again, at the same time, we're finding out about players not talking to their coach for the whole summer. So I mean, I guess it's possible.
That's nuts. And not to bring it fully back to DeAndre Ayton, but like Monty Williams is known as one of the best like player coaches in the NBA, right? Like I feel like those guys love playing for him, and for that relationship to go sour for this long, definitely just does not bode well for how that season's going to go for them. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you got to remember at the professional level is these guys are all competitors. So when you lose a game by 60 points and you get benched, there's going to be some hard feelings. So
no doubt.
I can see it happening, but it's just disappointing to see it happen.
Yeah, it's definitely crazy to just see like the fall of the Suns, right? And I feel like it just like alludes to the greater point of like your window in the NBA and any other sport is so small, right? Like, you know, they were up 2-1 on the Bucks.
I don't think they've fallen off. I mean, think about it. They were one of the best regular season teams for the last 2 years, and what is really stopping them from doing that this year?
I don't disagree with you, but I think that it kind of just gives me like those like mid 2010s like Raptors teams vibes of like they're going to give you a solid like 50 to maybe even 60 wins in the regular season, and then they're just going to drop a dud on you in the playoffs. And like that's just kind of like how I just like viscerally feel about them. But yeah, I mean they're still going to be competitive. I mean, you got CP3, you've got Devin Booker.
I'm not giving up on them just yet.
I'm not fully giving up on them.
Just because DeAndre Ayton's a little salty and Jay Crowder wants to be traded because he lost his starter spot, I still think they got a pretty good team.
They're definitely not a bad team. I guess I just view them as like not a real threat, honestly. And I think that they've benefited in the past of having not necessarily I guess you could say kind of a weaker Western Conference, or one that's been riddled with injuries and things like that. Are they still a quality team? Of course, but I also just think that a lot of teams have improved a lot in the last year and are starting to not necessarily separate themselves from the Suns, but are like right there, and I think can give them a run for their money. So we'll see.
Right. The only other thing that I thought from NBA Media Day that stood out to me was Greg Popovich saying to the reporters he said, don't go to Vegas to bet on us to win a championship, which is funny because it was met with laughter, and I feel like because the media loves Pop, and I feel like if any other coach had said that, they would have been getting roasted right now. Mm-hmm. Because I've never heard a coach say something like that before.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the media just loves him, and he's kind of allowed to say whatever the hell he wants to. And but I think in the broader sense, like, it's time for dude to hang it up.
Well, he even alluded to that. He said, my job is to develop the players on this roster for whoever the next coach is. Yeah. He literally said that.
Wow, I don't even think I caught that.
Yeah. So, I mean, he knows what it is, but it's crazy to hear him say that, though. I never heard a coach in almost any sport say, basically, don't even bother watching us this year.
I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, there's no other coach in the NBA or most other sports have as much leeway as he does, and that's just like by nature of him being a, top 2-3 coach of all time for the last 2+ decades. So he's just given that leeway.
Right. So one of the things that we did this week was we had a mailbag for the episode, and we're really thankful that people submitted questions. We got some good questions, some very broad questions, maybe controversial questions. The first one, shout out to Ben for the question, what are your opinions on KD's career?
Polarizing figure, just to say one. But personally, like, KD is without a doubt, in my opinion, a top 2-3 overall offensive player in NBA history, right? 7 foot, literally does everything. Incredibly talented. But, my view of him, frankly, got tarnished by him going to Golden State. I just felt like going up 3-1. What year was that? 2016. Going up 3-1, blowing that lead, and then deciding to go join them that next summer. I just think it was just one of the more cowardly moves that you can make, honestly. Like, I just equate it to, like, you know, if, like, we were, you know, throw us back in high school, right? And, like, we go out on a Friday and, like, we get into a fight with, like, a group of, like, another, like, 3 or 4 guys. And we get our asses kicked, and then we show back up in school on Monday morning, and, like, I'm hanging out with them. And it's also worse in, like, the context of our friend group, because, like, I'm, like, the biggest guy. So, like, I'm most responsible. You know what I mean? Like, I should have held that shit down a little bit better for us. And now I'm jumping ship and going to the guys that just kicked our ass. Like, that's just kind of soft, like, in my opinion. Like,
yeah.
I can't co-sign that shit.
I'm not riding the same wave that you are when it comes to KD, because I just think if anybody else was given, so, like, okay, your analogy, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, let me give you another analogy, right? If you were pretty much working a job and you felt like you did everything you could in that job, and you weren't really getting to where you wanted to, and then all of a sudden say, okay, Google is going to come hire me, and man, Google's wins every year, right? It'd be hard for most people to say, no, I want to stay in Oklahoma City. I want to be a part of this and build it from the ground up, especially when they traded James Harden. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't, I didn't really, now, could he have gone maybe somewhere else? Yeah, but, like, at the same time, if everybody's goal is to win a championship, what is the point of going to some team that's maybe about the same as OKC? You might as well just stay in OKC. So I don't get caught up in that stuff. Like, I don't get caught up on who goes to what team or what they do. I just care about the basketball player, and to me, he's one. I got him one. I still got him one, even if how old he is and post Achilles. I still just don't think that there's a player in the league that does as much as he does, whether it's being a 3-level, 2-way player at the same level that he does, which is crazy because I had the Nets 6, so and you had the Nets 3. So yeah, these opinions really don't make much sense, or maybe could be like semi-contradictory. But I believe that Brooklyn is just the organization. I don't believe in, not so much KD. I believe in KD. I just think you can't stop him. Like, he averaged 30 last year. Yeah. And the year before that, I swear he was like just an inch off from making the finals. Yeah. So it's hard for me to kill the guy, and then people are gonna also kill him because he went to the Nets and left the Warriors. So it's like, okay, if that's what you wanted, why did you go to the Nets? And it's probably because a lot of this discourse around his name is that he could only win with the Warriors. So he felt the need to, okay, I need to prove people wrong. So I'm going to go to Brooklyn. Yeah. I don't even necessarily disagree with, like, your analogy of, like, going to a, you know, high-level company, right? If, like, you're just, like, an everyday corporate worker, right? Like, that makes sense. But I think just the element of it, the element of competition and pride, like, has to come into play to a certain degree. Like, if you work at another tech company, yeah, you have competitors, but, like, you know, the people at, like, Facebook are not, like, I don't even know how to make the analogy. They're not playing defense on you. You know what I mean? And, like, they are in a certain respect, but I just think that there's an aspect of, like, competition in sports that just, like I can't remove myself from just, like, these guys just embarrassed us in the Western Conference Finals, and then I'm just going to go hop with them, you know, to go win a chip. And, like, I don't disagree, like, another kind of, not necessarily hot take, but just, like, I am totally on board with, like, going where you need to go to, like, you know, go, you know, advance your career better. Like, I was totally on board with LeBron going to Miami in, like, 2010, all of that. I have no disagreements with that. But I take issue with jumping ship to a team that just embarrassed you when you were a game away from the finals. And that's kind of my just overall point on it. But but that doesn't take away from my opinion on him of just, like, how amazing of a player he is overall. But I think that that's kind of my one
tarnished point for him when you look at his career in totality. But without a doubt, I have Giannis slightly over him just in my like current NBA rankings of like top players, but top 3 NBA player, Hall of Famer, all of that. I don't discredit any of that, but just the way that he handled that situation going to Golden State left a bad taste in my mouth personally.
No, and he repeatedly leaves bad taste in people's mouths because people don't like pause. Dang. First pause of the podcast. He repeatedly leaves bad taste in people's mouth. I think at this point intentionally because he just knows he's that guy. You look at KD's profile picture on social media. It's hilarious. I can't remember what movie it's from.
The Sandlot, right?
No, I think it's from. Is it from Emperor's New Groove? And the guys, he's standing up against the wall with a bunch of people holding knives to him because he's just like that most hated man, and he's kind of embraced it, and that's why he just tweets whatever he wants. And I love that. I'm. You've known this. I've been a long KD fan for a long time.
Facts.
We have a friend that, growing up, we had a everyday debate on who was better, Kevin Durant or Brandon Roy. And needless to say, I won that argument.
Shout out Brandon Roy. Shout out Brandon Roy.
Shout out
dog.
Him.
Absolute dog.
He really would have liked to see what he would have looked like without injuries. But
Kobe had such high words of praise for Brandon Roy. Like he was just like, he does everything. Just all 3-level score, 6'5", athletic, did everything. But like, you don't have to be a genius to look at the two of them, even at the start of their careers, and be like, KD's got about 6 or 7 inches on him in height, so it's just like not even a comparison at this point. But whatever.
So why don't we hop into our next question? This one is from Eli from St. Louis. Is Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon the best defensive backcourt in the NBA?
That's definitely a tough question. I think that they are definitely high up there, and I'm gonna personally say yes, but I think that there is some competition, and I know that you've got a list of who the best ones are.
Let's run through them. Are they better? Is Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon a better backcourt defensively than Drew Holiday and Wes Matthews?
Yes.
What about Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton?
I don't really consider Chris Middleton to be a guard. He's more of a 3 in my mind.
Right, but I think that there will be lineups at times where that'll happen. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong. Probably not, because I think that Drew Holiday and Marcus Smart are about equal in my eyes. I think Drew Holiday might have a slight edge, but like they're right there neck and neck with each other. But I think that Chris Middleton is not much better, but he's a better defender than Malcolm Brogdon. I'll agree with that.
I think Drew Holiday is a better defender than Marcus Smart, but Drew Holiday also has more offensive responsibility, so that limits him a little bit.
Fair.
The next one is, what about Russell Westbrook and Patrick Beverley?
That's tough.
That's a tough one because you get the energy that you want that I feel like almost like any other backcourt probably doesn't have as much defensive energy.
Facts.
But I guess maybe at this point in their career, we're not sure. But I do think they're top 3. Top 3. Lonzo Ball and Alex Caruso, we won't maybe even see this backcourt this season, so it almost doesn't even bother talking about it. But that one is very tough. I mean, at the beginning of last season, they were locking up. And it's funny because one of the things that I noticed when making this list, you'll notice a lot of these backcourts that I'm naming, they're not the starting backcourt. And really, and also Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon are not the starters because they've already came out and said that Malcolm Brogdon is going to be coming off the bench. So there's really not that many good defensive backcourts starting in the NBA, and that's kind of speaks to the direction of the league, really putting an emphasis on having more offensive-minded shooting type of guards.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to put together this list with anybody that was starting. I mean, the next person that I had was Jose Alvarado and Herb Jones. Jose Alvarado doesn't start.
Yeah, doesn't start.
And, I mean, he does the whole thing where he comes up from behind you and steals the ball, but, I'm wondering, on a minute-to-minute basis, is he really, one of the better defensive guards in the league? I don't know.
I think he just gives a lot of Patrick Beverly-esque energy, exactly. You know what I mean? Where he's just like up in your shit, like constantly, where he's a pest. And, but at the end of the day, the guy's barely 6'1", so like at a certain point your size is a disadvantage to you, so I wouldn't put them over Brogdon and Smart together, but I mean, yeah, but definitely a good backcourt tandem.
Kevin Porter and Jalen Green, to me, are one that's going to come on the scene this season. They weren't that last season, but they just got all the tools. You got two guards that are 6'6", super athletic.
Yeah,
I think that they have a chance to do that. I just don't know that they have the defensive anchor in Houston that they need to get to that next level.
They're hoping Jabari is that guy.
Right. But I mean, he could. So I don't know if he's like I'm more talking about like somebody that's like a rim protector that's got your back, that's going to cover up for a lot of your defensive mistakes. Jabari.
Isn't Jabari not looked at as that guy?
I mean, I get to me, I think like what makes him special is his ability to switch and guard guards at 6'11". I don't know that he's the same level of a help defender, a shot blocker, somebody that you're intimidated by when you come into the paint.
That's real.
Which I think those types of players, as we saw with Robert Williams this year, elevate the rest of the team.
Yeah.
And to me is the most important part of your defense. So I don't know that they have that. So because even if they have the tools, I don't know that they'll be unlocked in their full potential.
Yeah. And you made a good point with like Drew Holiday about his offensive responsibilities. Like I think you could apply that same logic to Jalen Green and
absolutely
and Kevin Porter Jr., where they are that offense. You know, like they're taking definitely 50-60% of all the shots on that roster. So, you know, they've got a lot of responsibilities in the offensive end of the floor. So I'm sure that you will see at times lapses in defensive effort, but from a just pure capability standpoint, you know, athleticism, like, you know, there's probably not a better just pure raw athletic duo, you know, at that guard spot. So, but you know, they have to handle a lot on the other end of the floor.
Right. And then the two backcourts that I got left, Fultz and Gary Harris for Orlando. It's another one that I'm not even sure how much we'll see them on the court together this season because they're both injury prone all the time.
Yep.
And then Cade Cunningham and Alec Burks / Jaden Ivey is one that not this season, but maybe one day.
Yeah.
Cade really showed signs of defensive promise in his rookie year, but I just think that they need more time to develop, but could have the tools to one day get there.
I'd agree with that.
Our next question from the mailbag was, what separates a casual basketball fan, that's a term that's thrown around a lot, calling somebody a casual, versus a real basketball fan / person?
Yeah. I think you should start because I know you have strong opinions about this.
It's really simple. There's people that watch the games, and then there's people that either are learning about the game through NBA 2K or are just watching social media highlights like Hoop Mixtape, House of Highlights, Ball is Life, or they're just people that read about it on the internet that don't actually watch the full games, and it's really not hard to tell the difference.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like it's like a broader, not necessarily issue, but like why the NBA has gained so much popularity is because they do social media better than any other league, without a doubt. I think just because it's such a highlight-driven sport where I feel like it's very easily consumed on social media, so people get an inflated idea of how much they really know about basketball. And I think, to your point, a lot of people don't watch full games, or even if they do, they're kind of scrolling on their phone the entire time. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that point, and
I'd say even take it to another level. So I mean, there's people that watch the full games, but then there's people that watch the full games but might not know everything that's going on, because there's a lot strategically that can happen in a basketball game that maybe your fan who is loyal to a team might not notice. Like somebody who's a diehard Sacramento Kings fan, for example. I'll just pull that out. They may be watching all the games from the lens of their team, right? So they only look at all of basketball through the lens of their team.
Yeah.
But they're not understanding strategically what's happening. They're not noticing when they switch ball screen coverages. They're not noticing what after timeout plays a coach is running, what kind of plays they're doing out of a baseline, out of bounds, stuff like that. I think separates the casual fan from a real one.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that, and I think this is maybe a little bit of a testy opinion, but like personally, I don't hold a lot of people's basketball opinions very high if they don't have a history of playing themselves, especially.
For sure.
And that's gonna sound a little obnoxious, but like I think it reigns true. Like I'm just not, frankly, I'm just like not gonna listen to your opinion as well if like your basketball experience stopped at like CYO basketball, to be perfectly honest. And like that's not to discredit. There are plenty of people who have made a career, in NBA media or journalism and understand the game at a high level and don't have like a very extensive, kind of playing background. But I think that those are the exceptions to the rule. Like the everyday person on Twitter or just at your barbershop or like whatever who just have opinions about basketball, like if you don't have the game to back it up, like I just look at you a little bit differently, to be perfectly honest.
I think it's a sliding scale because with that being said, I also don't think it's that complicated of a game. I think it's pretty simple to understand and pick up, but there is like a certain amount of time you got to spend around it and be involved with it to really understand what's going on. There's people that Lawrence Frank is an example of somebody who didn't even make like any team growing up, and he was able to become an NBA coach and GM now. I can almost tell from within talking to somebody for 5 minutes about basketball what their level of intellect around the game is, and that comes from either time spent in the game watching it, time spent playing, time spent around it, and it's very obvious if you're just watching the highlights, like you're gonna see it differently than other people will see it.
Yeah, 100%. And kind of a tangent off of that, like I saw this like Twitter thread about this a couple weeks ago of like the classic like basically like like corporate white guy in the office who like doesn't really watch basketball like that, and they're like, oh, I watch college because they care more. It's like, dude, get the fuck out of here. like the quality of basketball.
Don't get me started on that.
It's just like the quality of basketball is just like so. Is so stark.
We could dedicate a whole episode to that topic,
bro.
We could dedicate a whole season to that topic. I don't know if I'm ready.
It's not even close.
I don't know if I'm ready.
It's like the quality is not even close.
I'm not gonna say. So you get just to sum it up real quick. You get different things out of the two, right? There's a whole different level quality of player that you see playing college versus NBA, and I will say what's nice about college is there's teams with different styles of play than you see in the NBA, and teams with more solidified identities, which is cool. But I can't get into, because I will go off. Literally, like we're already 33 minutes in. Like I will go off on that topic because I don't like when people say they're only a college basketball fan. To me, you're just not a real basketball fan.
Yeah, and the reality is that the guy that says that, they only watch college basketball during March Madness, right, which is like the best time to watch it because those are the best teams, obviously.
Right, you ain't watching it in December.
Yeah, you're not watching Pittsburgh versus Wake Forest on a random Tuesday, right? Like that.
Even take it down another level, like say like Pittsburgh versus Alcorn State. You ain't watching that. You ain't watching those games.
I don't know if I'm watching that.
I'm watching those games.
You're a different breed. You're a different breed.
I'm definitely watching those games. But hey, I forgot to shout out Paige for that question. Excellent question.
Shout out Paige.
We did have one last question that we're going to answer at the end of the podcast, but it is, who do we have coming out of the East and the West? We're going to save that one for later. Shout out to Hamza for that question.
Shout out my boy Hamza, man. A real one.
So I don't know if we mentioned this at the beginning, but we are previewing the Western Conference this week. There's a lot of interesting movements in that Western Conference. We're going to talk about our top 3 moves and one underrated move that we thought happened. Colin, why don't you start it off? We're gonna list them out, and then we're going to talk about them afterwards.
Cool. So top 3 moves in the Western Conference this year. Got Christian Wood going to the Mavs. That's my number 1 move. John Wall going to the Clippers, number 2. And Rudy Gobert going to the T-Wolves.
Damn, you got Rudy 3?
I don't believe in Rudy Gobert. I do not believe in him. He's just like...
Nah, we're going to look back on that one.
See,
you're going to take an L on that one.
Well, the thing is, I can look at it objectively and be like, I could very well be wrong. Because, you now have probably the best defensive front line in the Western Conference, more likely than not. So I don't dispute that, but just there's been so many moments over the past couple of years where Rudy Gobert has he's just fucked over his teams late in the season. And on the defensive end of the floor, he was getting who was cooking him out on the perimeter in the playoffs.
He
had
last year. No defensive help there. Who is the best defender? I mean, who was the best defender on those teams? There was never more...
Royce
there was never more good defenders on the Jazz than there were offensive players. That was always an offensive-minded team, and he was having to carry them and put them on his back.
Yeah.
And so the one series where the Clippers went small and cooked him, and Terrence Mann was going off.
Going nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, but that's one series. I can't bury the man for one series. You know what I mean?
I wish I was a better person, but I can't. I
better person.
I can't get past it. I can't get past my natural reaction to him, and I just don't. I mean, but again, I still have it listed as an important move.
Right.
But,
okay. Well, I'm interested to see where you've got them placed in the West. So my top three was Rudy Gobert to Minnesota. You're gonna laugh at this second one. I got Bruce Brown / Kentavious Caldwell Pope to Denver, and then John Wall to the Clippers number 3.
Wow.
So I didn't actually have Christian Wood to Dallas.
Really?
In that one.
Oh,
yeah, because so I guess my thing is it's just a weird fit. I just don't. You can't. So one, they're not starting him, right, and it's because you can't play him and JaVale together. So I just don't. I mean, I get that he's going to be. He very well could be Sixth Man of the Year this year. I could see him averaging 20 points for them off the bench. But I guess it's just they have so many pieces that I'm trying to figure out. For him, and there's a lot of. He's a pretty polarizing player in the league. There's a lot of, what is he? Is he a stretch 4? Is he a playmaking 4? Is he a 5? To me, I just his fit is going to have him in some games and killing for sure. That's going to happen this season. I have no doubt about that. But then I also think that there's going to be some games where they can't play him. So I don't know if you can. I don't know. To me, I don't see that as the type of move that bolsters them up, right? So if we're talking top 3 moves, I can't credit that move when they just lost Jalen Brunson. So are you getting better, or are you essentially just staying at the level that you were already at?
I would argue that they're staying at the level that they're already at. I don't know. I've had just kind of a weird tangent. I've had Christian Wood on my fantasy basketball team for the last 2 years. So I've watched way more Christian Wood than the average NBA fan. I can say that for certain. And I just think he fills a lot of the needs that people thought that or think that they're losing by not having Jalen Brunson as another primary scorer. So in understanding that the guard spot is now different there, I get that, but you have Spencer Dinwiddie, who I think
could come in and be able to fill that spot.
And he was hooping towards the end of last year. But
he was hooping. But it's just a weird, because for me, I also just wonder about the fit with Luka. Luka is somebody that needs to play in space. That's why Dorian Finney-Smith is such a great fit for that team for them. I don't know, there's a difference.
He's a decent shooter.
There's a difference between a guy who's a shooter and a guy that can shoot. And I think Christian Wood is a guy that can shoot. I don't really see him going off for 3 threes a game this year. I don't know that I can trust him defensively. I do know that he can score. He's definitely a mismatch problem for a lot of teams. That he can post up smaller players, and then he can get big. He's got a quickness advantage on bigger players. I just wonder about the fit with Luka, and I just know that there's certain teams that he's not going to play against.
I mean,
the playoffs. He'll be good in the regular season, but I just don't think that he elevates them.
I think he's got too much talent to be ever sitting on like actually genuinely getting benched. Will his minutes maybe decrease on against certain teams? I could see that, but I just think he's got way too much talent for you to be just for Jason Kidd to not throw him out on the floor.
I mean, it's hard to say because he hasn't been on good teams too, so it's hard to say come playoff time. I'm not sure that I'm a believer come playoff time that he's going to be able to elevate them to another level that I think he'll do some good things. I'm not trying to say he's not a good player, but I just don't know that he brings them to another level. That's why I didn't have it a top 3 move. I mean,
I can understand that.
And then I feel that the reason why I got Bruce Brown, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in Denver is because now you got 2 wings that can really guard. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that they had that before. And if you're looking at their starting lineup, you got Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., Jokic, right? 3 guys they're not known for their defense. They're
at all.
So really the only guy defensively that you could trust is Aaron Gordon. So when you bolster up that wing with also Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I'm excited to see them offensively because KCP gives you spacing. And then Bruce Brown is just a totally unique offensive player. Bruce Brown was in the series against the Celtics he was killing. I'm texting my man Alex Schiffer, who is the beat writer for the Nets. I'm texting him yo, is this dude the 3rd best player on their team? I didn't think I realized when that happened, but he was. So I'm really excited to see. There's going to be times where Bruce Brown is setting a ball screen for Jokic and rolling to the hoop, maybe doing stuff like he did in Brooklyn. I don't know. I just think that move put them in another echelon for me because I think my biggest lack of belief in Denver has been their ability to guard, and now that you have depth that can guard too, I think that's going to help them a lot. And then, John Wall, I guess for me, I can recognize just how good of a player he is, but when you haven't played for 2 years, I don't know what we're getting.
Yeah. We
saw Klay Thompson this year was good still, but he wasn't the same version of himself. And then when you're playing that point guard position, to take 2 years off, it's just a question mark for me. It's not so much my belief in John Wall. What's your underrated move? The offseason.
Underrated move. I'm a big Jeremy Grant fan, and going to.
I had a feeling you were going to say that,
bro. because I wanted Jeremy Grant with the Celtics for the last 5 years.
But doesn't it how easy Portland got him makes me kind of be look back and be why?
Teams make weird trades sometimes.
It was literally just a 2nd-round pick, I swear. They got him for a 2nd-round pick. It was a salary dump. It was a salary dump.
But I like his game, man. I mean, he's not he's a, I guess you call a suspect defender to a certain degree, but he gives you spacing, he gives you scoring at that four guard at that four guard.
I mean, that's what it is in the NBA now, basically.
Yeah, but he gives you spacing, he gives you scoring. And that Portland roster, they've got a little bit of something, I think, just overall. So I think that Jeremy has fallen victim to playing on just bad teams over the course of his entire NBA career. So I think this will easily be the best one that he's ever been on. So does he elevate them to a real contender? No. But I think it was definitely just an underrated move that people are not thinking about, and is a nice little piece around Simons and Lillard that I think can add just some additional 15 points a game, right? And that's all they really need from him.
It's funny because my underrated move of the offseason was also on the Portland Trailblazers and Gary Payton II. To me, that move was super underrated because if you think about it, Dame has never played with a defensive-minded guard of that level of defender.
Agreed.
And I think that that's going to help take the team to another level. I could see him playing significant minutes. I could even see him being the sixth man, coming in pretty early, give Dame rest or give Simons rest, whoever they need. He's going to play a lot of minutes. I really think that he shifted the entire NBA Finals series against the Celtics when he came back. He gave them something different that Portland hasn't had. Portland's been a prolific offensive team over the last few years and have been able to play at the level that they were at because they were so elite offensively. But now that they have some pieces defensively like Josh Hart, Gary Payton, and we'll see if some guys emerge like a Nas Little or Justice Winslow, they're finally getting a more well-rounded team, which makes me, I don't know that they're completely there yet, but it makes me feel a little bit more optimistic about them this season than last season.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What about rookies? What about rookies in the West? Who are we excited about?
Well, who was your underrated guy in the West?
It was Gary Payton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, high moment.
I literally just talked about this.
Because you were talking about the Blazers, and I'm like, oh, like he's still kind of talking about Jeremy Grant. I don't know where my head is at. Sorry, totally lost.
Come on, man, lock in, man.
So rookies in the West. I got Keegan Murray 1, Shaden Sharp 2. Talking about the Blazers again, and Jabari Smith. I'm going to the Rockets.
Okay,
so those are my 3.
Ours are pretty similar. I've got Keegan Murray 1, I got Jabari Smith 2, and then I got Jeremy Sohan 3 because. Again, like similar.
I don't know how to feel about him.
Well, he's going to play a lot, so you'll learn how to feel about him pretty soon. You don't know how. Yeah, I know how I feel about him. I mean, I think they're already like raving about him.
Yeah, they
coming
are.
out of training camp, so that's always a good sign. He's got a chance to be a pretty elite defender.
Yeah.
He's going to play a lot, so I think for me, that's why I got him at 3.
I don't even necessarily, I guess my not knowing how to feel about him is more so, I feel like it's a very classic, he was on a pretty deep college roster and just had a very specific role. And it sounds like that role is going to be very similar in the NBA, but,
Yeah, I think that's exactly why I think he's going to be good.
Well, there you go.
He's not like somebody that's been, the focal point that's having to go down a role.
Yeah.
Right? He's going to... I don't know. Is he going to start for them? He might. If he's coming in and starting from day one, he's going to be on first team all rookie to me. So whether he's there or not, he's like Pop said, they're going to be developing their young talent. So he's going to play a lot.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of minutes.
And then we both had Keegan Murray 1. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I feel like we're both pretty swayed by Summer League.
No doubt.
I would not have made that. I would not have made that pick before Summer League. But
not a question.
He balled out and looked like a polished NBA scorer, right?
Yeah. Reminded me a lot of kind of like Antoine Jameson,
Al Herring.
I
thought you were about to say Anthony Randolph.
What?
Yeah, because Anthony Randolph balled out in Summer League one year, and then I don't know what happened after that.
Well, Anthony Randolph couldn't hit more than a 10-footer, so much different skill set. But I feel like just the kind of, what's he about? 6'9", 6'10"?
Yeah.
Decently sized, can, not necessarily, you wouldn't call his handles super tight, but, he can get to the rim, shoots well from the mid-range and from 3. So I think that he'll be a good piece next to Sabonis, and I think Sabonis will help with just kind of that overall development. But Sacramento is also just a nightmare as a whole. So I hope it goes well for him.
What about underrated rookie, second-round rookie out of the West?
Staying with the Kings, I'm going with Jaden Hardy.
Wait.
What?
Jaden Hardy's on the Mavs.
Oh, on the Mavs. I had it listed as the Kings.
I think he got drafted by the Kings, but he got traded.
Because I definitely.
You know what? That was also my pick.
Was it actually? I'm bugging right now. And it's crazy because I literally saw a clip of him earlier today, hitting he hit a Sham God move in practice, because I didn't realize that Sham God is on. He's on the Dallas staff.
Their staff. He's on their staff.
I didn't even know that. Well, I had it listed wrong over here.
No, you're good. I mean, I have him too because the guy came straight out of high school, went straight to the G League, and people were judging him off the numbers. I'm just thinking, how are you judging somebody that goes from high school to pro? Remember when the NBA had the high school to pro rule, that was the same type of transition that people had. People were not great right away. That was very uncommon for the guys that came straight out of high school. I feel the same way about him. I feel like that was a steal for them. I'm curious to see how soon because I am a firm believer that he will be playing for the Mavericks at some point. I don't know how soon it's going to be, but he's going to play.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's going to play it. He's going to get his chance, and he's going to show. He's going to surprise some people for sure.
Also, doesn't hurt, playing for a coach like Jason Kidd. You know what I mean? Just have that guard spot. I'm sure that'll help as well too.
Right. All right, man. Why don't we hop into our top 15 teams in the West? What are we predicting?
Let's do it.
This is my favorite part of the show. I'm really curious when we get to All-Star break to look back at these and see how these look.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I guess I'll start. So, we'll go from bottom to top. I got Utah coming in at 15. I mean, they're just in full rebuild mode. But just running through this, Utah at 15, Spurs at 14, OKC 13, Houston at 12, Sacramento 11, Portland at 10, New Orleans at 9, Minnesota at 8, Lakers at 7, Phoenix at 6, Clippers at 5, Dallas at 4, Denver at 3, Memphis at 2, Golden State number 1.
Wow. That's funny because we have a lot of similarities, but then
Really?
there's some drastic differences. So mine is also last place. I got the Spurs. I don't got the Jazz.
Really?
Which we could talk about for a second, but I'm going to go through the list and then we'll work our way up from there. I've got Spurs 15, Jazz 14, Thunder 13, Rockets 12, Kings 11, Trailblazers 10, Mavericks 9, Timberwolves 8, Lakers 7, Clippers 6, Pelicans 5, Grizzlies 4, Nuggets 3, Suns 2, Golden State 1.
Wow. You got Dallas at 8.
I got Dallas at 9.
9.
Yeah, man. I just
playing team.
Well, no, it's like we're saying all these teams. We're saying at the beginning of the podcast either got healthier or made additions. To me, they just stayed the same. They just stayed the same to me, and I, as much as I believe in Luka, I think he's just carrying an offensive burden that is hard for a top team in the West to carry. Whereas I look at these other teams, I don't feel like their star players aren't having to do as much as he is.
Yeah. I think our difference is that, I think you have justified hesitations about Christian Wood. I think that Christian Wood's going to come in and be very solid for them. But when you put it in the context of did they really get any better, especially by losing Jalen Brunson? I think that Christian Wood will basically amount to the same amount of offensive production that Jalen Brunson will. That's my personal prediction. Plus more rebounding, frankly, and just size. But less. To me, I think you're getting less. As crazy as this is to say out loud, you're getting less points in the paint because Jalen Brunson was one of the top paint scorers in the league last year, right? He gets the rim.
And then I think you're just getting less playmaking, and I think you're about getting the same thing defensively. So we'll see. But let's talk about the Spurs and the Jazz because I think this is funny. Can you name the highest paid player on the Spurs?
Jakob Poeltl?
No. It's Doug McDermott.
Jesus Christ. Dougie McBuckets.
And I don't know, maybe factoring, I think maybe Keldon Johnson might, after having re-signed this summer, might be close, but as of last year, Doug McDermott was the highest paid player, and the team is so young.
Yeah.
That I just don't see them. At least the Jazz, you're looking at them. Obviously, we're probably running under the assumption that the Jazz are going to make some trades, but I think the Spurs are also going to make some trades too,
probably.
Right? They had already came out and said that they want 2 first-round picks for Jakob Poeltl. I bet you there's going to be some teams that aren't shooting the ball well that would be interested in a Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
So I think the Spurs are also going to make trades, and then I just don't as strange as this sounds, I was looking at the Jazz's starting lineup it's not terrible. I was like,
what's their projected starting five?
So right now, as of today, Mike Conley, Colin Sexton, and Lauri Markkanen. I'm trying to think who would be that other one. And then probably going to be Walker Kessler at the 5, who's a rookie. I want to say in that other spot, it could be either Jordan Clarkson, Malik Beasley, Jared Vanderbilt if they want to go big. I'm not really sure who that fifth starter is, but I mean, if we're talking about Jared Vanderbilt and Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench, Jared Vanderbilt was a starter on a playoff team last year.
Yeah, he was.
Jordan Clarkson's a former sixth man of the year. Like, the roster's still not that bad, honestly, as crazy as it sounds. I just don't think. I mean, they're trying to lose games. That's very obvious at this point. But compared to the Spurs, like if the Spurs, your best player is Keldon Johnson, and then the Jazz, you got some guys that are with more experience at the very least. Yeah. Right?
That's fair.
That's why I got them last. And then I think our next big, I mean, we were pretty almost like, we had literally the same 13 to 10. Literally the same.
Yep.
I think the Kings still. I can see the Kings making the play-in, but I still think they're on the outside looking in.
Yep.
Where was our next biggest difference? I think it might have been the Pelicans.
Yeah, I had the Pelicans. Yeah. I had the Pelicans at 9.
Right. I just think they got momentum, right?
They do.
They made one of the biggest additions of the offseason in Zion Williamson.
Because
he wasn't on the team last year. So they were able to do all that without him. And when Zion played, man, that dude was like an all-NBA player.
Freak, man. He's a freak.
Right? So I think that they got better exponentially compared to a lot of the other teams.
Yeah.
So that's why I got them 5. And it feels a little premature. I get it. But I think that they have 2 legitimate options offensively in CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, and Zion.
You throw Zion there.
And then Valanciunas is also like they're going to be a hard team to guard.
Valanciunas out here shooting threes nowadays.
Yeah, they're going to be a hard team to guard.
Facts.
So I think they're going to put some pressure. I felt a little differently about the Clippers than you. Where did you have the Clippers?
I have them at 5.
5. Okay. Well, I had them at 6.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hesitation around John Wall is like totally justified, especially just given the fact that he hasn't played in 2 years. But I don't think there's a really better situation for you to walk into after your entire career has been predicated on you being like a number 1 or number 2 scorer, and you're now dealing with the, arguably 2 of the top 5 two-way players in the NBA with Kawhi and Paul George.
For sure.
So I think that he walks into a good situation. I like that roster. They're super deep. A lot of scoring.
They're deep. They're deep at certain spots, though. It's hard for me to say that they are deep, but I feel like they're super deep on the wing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not very deep at the in their front court.
Yeah, they're not deep at the 5, and they're not deep at the point guard position, that's kind of where my biggest hesitation. To me, I don't think the Clippers are a contender because of that simple fact that we don't know the point guard position. It's just we don't know. And then Zubats he's a starting center in the league, but if he gets in foul trouble, who they got? Who is the 5 off the bench? I really don't even know.
I couldn't tell you. I think the point, at least for me, I think the point guard spot is less of a concern, just because I feel like, John Wall will definitely be that guy for them. We'll see how he responds, but I feel like PG does a good job of being able to run the offense every now and then. I mean, that of course is not his primary spot, but I think there's a lot of playoff series where he'll be kind of initiating the offense.
But if he's having to do all that, especially given that he's a guy that underratedly has been out for a really long time. He's a guy that you can't have PG playing the point because they're going to be load managing him and Kawhi all year long. So there's going to have to be somebody that emerges. I don't know if maybe it's the kid Jason Preston that they drafted 2 years ago. I don't know. It's just to me those are question marks that I can't move forward with them without having those answered.
Yeah. I think that's totally fair. I mean, and what, you had them at 6? I had them at 5. So.
I guess maybe the biggest difference we had was the Suns. You had them at 6?
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, I got them at 6.
I can't get behind that because they got Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, borderline defensive player of the year last year, and then they're going to be starting Cam Johnson, who's also pretty nice. That's one of the best 5s in the league. 5-man lineup. They've been one of the best regular season teams over the last 2 years, unless maybe if you're thinking Chris Paul might be aging, or to me, I feel like they're still in that contender echelon.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with you. Like I was
And
saying,
they're also getting Dario Saric back.
oh yeah, they are. I guess I just and I kind of made the point previously. Like they just remind me of those. I don't know, just like regular season heavy like Toronto Raptors teams from like back in the day, and then in conjunction with.
Which team are you talking about? Like the ones with like DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry?
Yeah. I'm thinking of those, and I'm not trying. Like I'm not a Chris Paul hater. Like I think that he's a elite point guard, but there's been a repeated pattern of just like these teams just like not necessarily like it doesn't seem like there's a ton of like infighting like amongst the other players or whatever, but it just like seems like, you know, around that like at least for the last couple of years, that like 2 or 3 year mark where they just start to just kind of crumble. I wish I had like better, more eloquent words to like put it towards, but like it just seems like they're kind of seems like they've peaked, and I think that people know how to know how to defend them.
I mean, they are going to have to do some things offensively. I think one of the biggest things is they take the most mid-range shots in the league. Yeah. And obviously Chris Paul and Devin Booker, that's a strong point for them, but it's just really hard to win that way. It's been proven. The numbers prove it. Like, you can't just rely on that to win NBA games. You got to be able to make more threes. I think that's maybe where Cam Johnson's like a big wild card for them.
Yeah. I think that's definitely a big piece of it, and yeah, again, like, you know, we alluded to it at the top of the show. Like, you can't take too much stock in NBA Media Day, but DeAndre Ayton coming in and already being pissed off is not a good look.
I mean, they're definitely going to make some trades. Like, the team we know it as it is now is not who they're probably going to be, because they're going to probably trade Jay Crowder. Yeah. So we don't know what they're going to look like after that. And then who knows, like, if there really is like some fire behind the smoke of DeAndre Ayton's media day.
Yeah. So we'll see.
What else? Like, I feel like we've pretty much. I mean, I was different.
Where did you have the Lakers?
7. I think that's where you had them. My one note for the Lakers was need more shooting.
Oh yeah,
that's literally it. I mean, I am happy with their offseason because I think that they establish more of an identity and know what they want to do. They're clearly wanting to be a defensive team. Darvin Ham was the anchor of one of the top defenses in the league over the last few years in Milwaukee, and they added Patrick Beverley. Clearly, they want to add. Or clearly they want to build on that identity of being a defensive team. I still think that they have some holes in their defense, but it's good to see that they'll at least have. And I don't see any way that Russell Westbrook's going to have as bad of a year as he had last year. We'll see though.
Yeah, hopefully not, man. I'm a big Russ fan, so I hope that he's able to turn it around. And you know, I just think the league is better when the Lakers are going into the playoffs. You know, LeBron's trailing towards the end of his career. I want to see him make a couple more runs. So I'm
still averaged 30 a game last year.
Yeah, it was absurd, absolutely absurd.
He's not going anywhere anytime soon, as much as people want him to.
Definitely, but at this point, it's really about AD. Whether he can stay on the floor, because LeBron said it when he joined, like, this is his team, like, he needs to be the driving force that's, you know, bringing them, you know, into a deep playoff run, and if he's just not available, then the conversation stops right there.
For sure, but it's not just like about his availability. He hasn't shot the ball really well from outside over the last 2 years. Yeah, and he talked about one of the reasons is that he had wrist injuries. Now, with that being said, he's saying it feels good now, but we just can't trust his health. I think that's the biggest thing that's holding them back.
Yeah, made of glass.
We both had Golden State won, right? And I mean, to me, and I'm watching the preseason game, watching them play against the Wizards, and I'm seeing it already from preseason game 1. I can still see that they're picking up exactly where they left off. Yeah. Obviously, preseason is super sloppy, and teams aren't anywhere near where they're going to be in a few months. But the way that they were moving the basketball, it's just so hard to not pick them one, because there's just no other team that does that in the the league to the level that they do it, and they're still that same team, and it's really hard. Especially, I mean, there's some people that are down on their offseason because they let Otto Porter go, they let Gary Payton go, and basically they're relying on some young guys to come in and step up. But
they've got good young guys. I like
they have great young guys.
I mean, Wiseman, again, like you can't take too much stock in preseason, but Wiseman looked good yesterday. Jonathan Kuminga, I think is a good piece. There was also some like negative like talk about him. I feel like this summer, I feel like there was like a report saying that like they don't like his like work ethic, like he's not in the gym as much as he needs to be. But you can't deny the guy's just athletic capability, and what he could potentially do for you on the defensive end of the floor while still being, a solid rim runner. And, he definitely developed his shot a little bit. You could see a little bit of that in Summer League. So those two and Moses Moody, you got some good pieces. They added DiVincenzo this summer as well, coming off of injury. But I think that, losing Otto Porter and Gary Payton are definitely significant losses, but when you're an organization like that and you have, the stars that they do, I think that you're able to find guys that can fulfill those roles for you. So I don't see them anywhere else.
It's like the Patriots.
Same concept.
It really is. Same concept. Let guys walk that normally you'd be like, oh, wow, we need to have them back. But no, you just got the next man up.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. The other young guy that I was impressed with them in preseason was Patrick Baldwin Jr. It's crazy because they got, in the drafting in the last few years, they've gotten two former number one players in the country. Yeah. And he's another one that flew under the radar because he played in Milwaukee this year and honestly didn't really have that great of a year.
He was hurt for a lot of it too, wasn't he?
And watching him in preseason, like he hit this turnaround jumper out of the post, and I'm like, oh man, like you gotta something totally different. Like Draymond is just like he's like the opposite of Draymond. He's like a tall, skinny sniper, 6'11". I got excited just seeing him play a little bit. I don't know how much he'll even play this year, but it's just yet another guy that they have that, for us Celtics fans is frustrating to see.
Dude.
Just how well they've drafted over the last few years.
Yeah. So I guess to that, kind of wrap it up. So who is your, we'll come to our mailbag question.
Yep.
So who do you have coming out of both the East and West this year for the finals?
I've got Philly coming out of the East this year, and then I've got Golden State coming out of the West. And to be honest, winning it all, I've got Golden State again.
I'm in the same boat, man. I got Golden State, but I got the Bucks coming out of the East, and it's hard for me to not see Golden State repeating, honestly, for how tough it is. But Steph Curry's just he's on another level, man.
Yeah,
like he's just like, I mean, you can't guard him. And just like they play, to your point previously, they just play the best brand of basketball across the NBA. So I just imagine that without, barring any major injuries, I don't see them not being able to at a minimum get to the finals. And then I think at that point it's always a conversation of, well, who's got the best player, right? And Steph Curry is basically almost always going to make that argument.
For me, it's not even just about Steph. It's about they have so many options. Like they have Jordan Poole, they have Wiggins, and I'm not even talking about from just the standpoint of those are weapons that they can use. Like those are also weapons that they can trade. So we don't know if how their season's going to start, how they're going to look, but if it doesn't go well, they can just trade. They can make a high level trade with pieces like James Wiseman, Kuminga, Moody. I just feel like they have the ultimate cushion compared to other teams. Like they can't afford to lose. They can afford to have somebody injured. They can afford to have Klay Thompson injured. You know what I mean? They can afford to have Kevon Looney injured.
They lasted the second half of the regular season last year without Draymond.
So they've got this cushion that I don't think any other team in the league. And yeah, I agree. Steph Curry is still in his prime, and he's just an impossible player to game plan for, as we saw in the finals last year.
Brutal. Yeah, but man. So those are our picks, and I think that's about it, man.
Yeah, I mean, you got anything else you want? If you've made it this far, for our listeners.
No, I mean, really appreciate all the views, guys. All the all the engagement with us. Again, please like, comment, subscribe. We definitely really appreciate it. We'll be back next week with our third episode. It'll be our first episode with a guest, so we're really excited to announce that. You'll be hearing from us, over the course of the week with some, additional posts and just updates about what's going on with us. But again, looking forward to next week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.